They got a tough call here. Do you give it to Barrett, Miller? Which of the quarterback? It can't be Haskins or Fields just on 1 year, even though both were phenomenal. I think it's got to be Barrett. I mean, the 150 touchdowns responsible for, the record was Drew Brees, like 104 previously, and he shattered that and put it so far out of reach. No one will ever touch that, because anybody who's that good won't be there 4 years to touch it in the fourth year, in my opinion. So
I think Dwayne Haskins is the best of them. But then you're right, Steve. Does it come down to, do you reward somebody for 1 year, or do you go to the guy who has all of the other career records like JT Barrett? Do you go with the season records or the career records? And if it's an all Big Ten, if it's an all decade team, I guess you probably go with the career. But before JT, like Braxton was going to be setting all kinds of records if he would have had that senior year as well. And I think they would have been more equipped to win a national title with him than Barrett. But it's still hard for me to put anybody over Dwayne Haskins for that year he had. But, is it a career? Or is it a season award? It's a career award.
Yeah. If your career was within the decade, certainly. Yeah. They picked a player of the decade in basketball. It was Frank Kaminsky from Wisconsin, who got them to the national championship game, had an amazing year. So there will, in all likelihood, be a player of the decade for football. And I think it's hard to give that to anybody other than JT Barrett as well. For all of his faults, he was really, a very good player and probably the best individual player in the Big Ten for the time that they're doing it for.
Let me real quick say about centers. For me, Billy Price would be no better than third behind Pat Elflein and even Corey Lindsley. And after this year, although Josh Myers wouldn't, I guess, count with the all-decade team, I think Josh Myers is going to be as good as any of those guys. But I'd go with Pat Elflein first, even though I think what Steve did, he only have 1 year as a center after moving from guard. So I understand that as well in Billy Price. But Billy Price,
Michael Jordan wasn't a slouch either. I mean,
so they've had a bunch, and they've got another one, and then Harry Miller behind Josh Myers coming down the road.
If you had to go with an all-purpose on offense, maybe it's Braxton Miller, just because he did have the 1 year where he moved from quarterback and played the wideout, I guess the H receiver position. But maybe he becomes all-purpose because what he did, I mean, he was nothing short of amazing. I mean, in his 3 years, an undefeated season as well. What would that be? The only undefeated season for a Big Ten team in the entire decade. He was the quarterback and basically the entire offense that year in 2012. So, he deserves a mention somewhere here. I don't know where he's going to get it, but
so the JT Barrett comparison with the other quarterbacks is an interesting one, because statistically he, as Steve outlined, is so far from a career standpoint ahead of everybody else. Do you just say career stats say JT Barrett's the guy, or do we actually put the numbers into context, which we should, or even go another layer and say just who are the better quarterbacks? Well, the as I scan through, I'm going through each team and I'm just thinking, man, Ohio State has this locked down, because I'm coming up with a lot of good pedestrian quarterbacks at Iowa and Wisconsin in particular. We know what Michigan's produced. Their best quarterback statistically was actually a running back in Denard Robinson. If you want to take the totality of producing offense, basically the two best quarterbacks in the conference did their best work at the next level, Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was the 1 year guy at Wisconsin, of course, had a great year, took his team to the Rose Bowl, but has become a all-time great at the NFL level. And Kirk Cousins is not at that level at the NFL place, but certainly a very capable quarterback, making a ton of money, and was very accomplished at Michigan State. And I believe his years would have been 2010 through 11 for sure. He played those 2 seasons as the starter. So he leaks into the previous decade, I think in 2009. But I got to think Dwayne Haskins is the best quarterback on the field, but it's a 1 year deal.
Yeah. Trace McSorley wins it. Then what do we do? Emergency show?
I don't recall who the analyst was, but somebody made the point recently on Michigan and their foibles is that they have not had a truly elite quarterback in. I mean, the last time they won the Big Ten was 2004, and I want to say that was John Navarre may have been the
Henne is a freshman.
Chad Henne, yeah.
Chad Henne, okay.
Then Navarre.
And he played in the NFL for a few years, so that's not outlandish, I guess. But they've run a bunch of guys through there, and of course, you had the failed Rich Rod experiment where he took a look at Mallett and said, you know, he's good, but for what he is, but he's not what we're looking for. And then he also went on and played in the NFL and had a great showing at Arkansas, you know. So, and you wonder why guys lose their job after 3 years. It's because they come in and go scorched earth and don't win immediately with the talent that's available while also bringing in the guys they want for their system. He would have made a lot of goodwill for himself had he gone in there with Mallett the first couple of years and won 9 or 10 games, and he would have got a 5-year contract extension and, you know, could have set himself up. Instead, he was very short-sighted in believing that his system was going to win games in the Big Ten. And boy, oh boy, was he complete. He set that program back maybe 10 years because they are still not out of, you know, the hole that he put them in. I mean, they're not back where they were, certainly. I mean, to where they were winning 10 games every year and all that. They rarely do that. So
they seem to be pretty much in that same range, Steve. If you look at what they've produced over the last 5 years under Harbaugh versus Lloyd Carr,
yeah,
it's his 97 championship. It's pretty much in the same range. But as you mentioned, they didn't have an Ohio State juggernaut to deal with to this degree, so they would sneak in and win some Big Tens.